Well, hello, everybody. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you in the world you are. And I know you're very happy to have Mr. Leo ZAGAMI back with us again today on Aquarius Rising Africa. So, welcome, Leo. It's so awesome to see you again. And really look forward to our show tonight. How are you doing?
Always a pleasure. Please forgive me if I have a little bit of cold, but I guess that we will have a great show as my new book just came out and we have a lot of topics to discuss from it.
Absolutely looking forward to that because we're now looking at Confessions of Illuminati, Volume 9, which I was looking through some of the content of your book, and I'm very excited to actually look into that. But I want to just tell our viewers as well, as you can tell, I'm on load shedding here again. So if I disappear for a second or two, Leo, please just carry on. I'll be in and out if anything dodgy does happen. But hey, we're in Africa, so it's wonderful. In lots of other ways, it's wonderful, not with the load shedding there. But anyway, happy to have you here. Happy to be with everyone here this evening. And Leo, yes, I'd love to hear more now about your Volume 9. Tell us a little bit about what that's about.
Well, it's a book that lives in a dimension of its own. It can be read without reading the previous volumes. It consists of 7 steps to the secrets of this new world disorder, from transhumanism and immortality to Gnostic Jesus, UFOs, and insect witchcraft, which is a topic that not many people know about. As many other of the topics that I outlined in this new book, which I dedicated to God. So it was a big responsibility for me to dedicate a book to God. And to go through this book was in itself almost a mystical experience, because when you, as a writer, start writing a book and laying down its foundations, things happen around you. And of course, this is a book that the Satanists fear very much. Imagine that immediately after I announced this book and the success of this book, because it's already in the Amazon bestseller list in various categories, I immediately got attacked left, right, and center for people I didn't even know that came on my profile to simply insult me, and so that means that there is something good about it. It means that we're touching on topics that, of course, these leftists, people with Antifa symbols, professors from leftist universities and all that kind of thing. But the book is resisting, and it's at 4 stars. Actually, all the reviews are 5 stars, but some invisible creatures put some 1 star or, I don't know, 4 stars. But in any case, the book is going well, and the book is important because it finally describes for the first time what the Illuminati really think and talk about when they talk about transhumanism. This is a topic, of course, that I've somehow discussed a little bit in volume 6 and 7, especially because it regards, of course, also the rise of cyber Satan. But in this specific book, actually bring out the documentation, the photos, that prove that not only the Illuminati exist, because that is always something that you get they say, oh, but it is a conspiracy. Okay, fine, these are the people, this is what they do, and so for the first time you will be able to also see what they think of transhumanism. And transhumanism, for at least one of them, for Dr. Nicholas Laos, which has published this essay on transhumanism and is a part of the Academy of the Illuminati in Rome, is the new form of Freemasonry. So transhumanism seems to actually have more importance than ever for the Illuminati. And also from some branches, of course, of Freemasonry. Now Freemasonry seems to be completely these days taken over by liberal and progressive forces that are pushing all this trans business. And trans means beyond.
Yes. I want to actually just when you talk about transhumanism, yes, there's obviously a lot of transgenderism going on right now as well. And one thing
that is the introductory stage, you see, pushing the transformation of the human being in something that is of course, a transgender is a mix of genders and stuff, is only the first initial stage of something that instead is going to see us merging with the machine. So in 10, 15, 20 years from now, when you see people walking around the streets that are literally kind of cyborg-like and half men, half machines, if you will, if your kid will say, pointed, what's that, to his mother, that, by the way, will no longer be called his mother, they will say, no, don't be racist. You have to embrace everything that comes with this global transformation. And step 1 to step 7 is a concept that I created around this book. It's almost like going on an imaginary ladder, descending rather than ascending in certain cases, and describing from step 1 what is the omega point. The omega point is the arrival of a stage of existence for mankind that basically is transforming itself and merging with the machine. Now, this omega point was conceptualized by a guy called Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, who was a Jesuit, who died in the 50s, but was immensely influential. He was regarded a bit of a maverick initially, but with the Second Vatican Council, the transformations that went on in the Vatican in the last 70 years, we can say, 60 to 70 years, we can say that in the end, even Pope Francis is a fan nowadays of Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, who, of course, was a Jesuit.
Just say his name, Pierre de
Teilhard de Chardin is a guy who inspired, and I talked about him in the past, both in volume 6 and volume 7, but I had to also mention him in volume 8 and discuss him because the omega point has also been embraced to a certain extent by people like Ray Kurzweil, who also are indicating this singularity event that will take place once we achieve or cross into an evolutionary step where we cease to be humans. So this is about the constant search of immortality that the Illuminati have been, since the Renaissance, there's always been an obsession, the obsession with the elixir of life, the philosopher's stone, the possibility of extending to eternity your own life has been a dream of the Illuminati, who, of course, are aiming somehow to become gods. And transhumanism is almost promising this whole thing to become true. They believe that with the help of the AI, quantum computers, and robotics, they will be able to achieve immortality, either by nanotechnology implanted in your body that can fight any kind of disease, as well as, of course, the mind transfer possibility, which I discuss further on in the book because it's a reality, it's not just science fiction. But at the beginning, I indicate, of course, the importance of a film like Transcendence, which, of course, people know because of Johnny Depp, but not many people know that in this movie you also had the cameo of Elon Musk that appears for a few seconds in this important movie. So this is about the Illuminati taking on board what they have always done, which is being obsessed with what they call alchemy, which can be either a spiritual endeavor, but also a more physical, chemical endeavor. And at this point, their quest for immortality is being outlined also in the paper of Dr. Nicholas Laus, who, like Yuval Noah Harari, is part of these gurus of this new world technological order. So I think that the fourth industrial revolution, of course, that Davos has announced, is manifesting in what is a transhumanist gnostic reality to establish a good alternative in the not so distant future for what they see as a useless class that is just consuming air and food and resources, because the elite wants to eliminate part of mankind. And so we are now facing this big problem. Satan's Legion is advancing, the AI trap is manifesting, and the useless class, which is ourselves, are left, like Harari says, playing video games, doing drugs, and doing things to simply entertain ourselves until we finally extinguish ourselves. Now, we will not extinguish ourselves so easily. And of course, the problem here is that they will try in every way possible, shape or form, with wars, pandemics, and whatnot. So this is...
Why, because I, in the beginning of the conversation, you said an interesting word. You said AI Satan, right? You said something...
Cyber Satan. Yes.
Cyber Satan, that's right. Okay. I think that's actually so significant, because that really is, because the enemy of humanity or mankind right now is AI and this entire meta world that has been created for many decades now already. And it's so easy now looking back to see how the run-up to this has taken place, right? First introducing, let's say, video games, for kids. I remember when my son was
like we discussed the last time, we discussed Volume 8, which was concentrated on Hollywood. But if you remember, I also discussed how the AI was becoming a threat to Hollywood as we know it. And in fact, recently we had the Hollywood strike that simply contributed to confirm what I already stated, that the danger of the AI rise also in what was a field dominated by an art, a craft, of course, very much leaning to the left in the last 50 to 60 years, but in any case, something that we all enjoyed as a human art form, which soon might become something else.
Wow, that's incredible. Because, sorry, I want to just say, it makes such sense when we're talking about first this whole. In my opinion, I think there's been a lot of these youngsters have been weaponized. In the same way that they can weaponize kids for the military, a lot of these youngsters have been weaponized for this whole transgender movement right now. And obviously, do you think it started with the Zappa, right? With the whole pandemic. So forcing people really to get the jab was their first step to really, in my opinion, also some type of social experiment to see how many people they could literally con. And, how many people, because if you look at the whole thing, it's insane to me how many educated people made a choice to go in the other direction. But then we understand that they've been programmed to do that through schools, universities, etc. Right? So I just think, what I'm saying is that where we've gone right now with the AI, what do we do as humans at this point just to observe? And I understand there's obviously solutions to everything. But when we're looking at how far it's going and how quickly it's going, right, it seems like everything has just been sped up in the last 2 years, even less, maybe a year and a half, right, in terms of this movement.
I guess that 2020 was a turning point that was previously announced, even if in a veiled way, by the United Nations, but then it becomes an absolute reality in 2030, which seems to be the ultimate, the year in which they will achieve their mission. And what is their mission? Is, of course, to try to transform mankind. Now, we know that alchemy is about transformation, practice, and experimentation, but we also know that alchemy is something that the elite wants to implement on a massive scale, transforming our for them primitive form in something else. So the fact that without, of course, we have to be very careful here, otherwise they will immediately remove this video. So we have to be a little bit careful of how we put it through. But the censorship is also dominated by the AI. I mean, the censorship is also part of the AI disinformation era. And at the same time, we know that they want to transform our DNA, they want to transform us in something different, but they want to also eliminate part of our human race. They can do it by castrating us, and they can't, of course, go around saying, okay, we're going to castrate you, because I don't think there is any man or woman who will embrace this kind of thing. So there is other ways of doing it, but in the end, the result is the same. You see, also when it comes down to transgenderism, it has actually a double function within the elite view of things, because in one way you are forcing everybody to embrace the LGBTQ agenda, because otherwise you are racist, you are bigot, all this, but at the same time you are influencing people within universities that only had maybe 2, 3, 4% LGBT to manifest a much higher percentage, so that people then don't form the regular family the regular family union, and at that point, by destroying these values, you can also probably influence them in not procreating anymore. When it was, during the pandemic, my body is my choice, well, it seems to be a double standard, because we see that, of course, that functions only in their own eyes when it's their own, their own agenda is served by that phrase. So we are in front of course, alchemists who are working through elements, namely fire, air, earth, and water, and have also different modes of force and matter that they are kind of working with, and they are working with these energies, these God's uncreated at time energies, to create something different, something that they think will change forever the face of the world, but will also serve the purpose of giving to the elite the possibility for the elite, which is a minority, of course, of mankind, is a small percentage, but to dominate everybody else. And everybody else will say, but don't they need us? Don't they need us to consume their goods? Don't they need us to feed their system in some way? This has always been the answer that the simple person gives. Oh, well, they need us because we're gonna have to still buy their products. No, they don't need us anymore, because they have robots, and so who cares for them? When they this year presented, as I explain in my book, for the first time, to my knowledge, there was actually, it is a historic conference that in Geneva took place with the United Nations presenting these robots, that for the first time did a public press conference. It was shocking to see how mankind is so ignorant of the implication that something like this will... these 9 robots were seated, and they were there kind of in this Geneva Conference Center at the United Nations International Communication Union, put together this news conference. And there was, of course, the star was Sophia. Sophia, it's also a name that was not given just by chance. In Gnosticism, Sophia is a feminine figure that is analogous to this human soul, but also simultaneously one of the feminine aspects of God. And for them, Sophia was first activated on Valentine's Day, February 14, 2016. Let's not forget that for the Gnostics, Saint Valentine has a different we think of St. Valentine like in the way the Catholics feel St. Valentine, the reference to St. Valentine, but for the Gnostics is a reference to what was one of the main Gnostic figures, Valentine, who was basically inspirational for their own Valentinian tradition, which has nothing to do with traditional Christianity. And so Sophia is modeled after also they said themselves, the wife of Akhenaton. So there is also these connections, and we have basically now these robots presenting themselves in an official and formal way before the ultimate takeover. They seem all nice and fancy and dandy, and everybody's curious. Oh, wow, watch them! Look what they do. They look like us. Or maybe they smile. But then, when they're gonna take over the show, and you're gonna have an army of them marching, forcing you to be microchipped, forcing humanity to be cornered while the AI takes over the whole of the world. And now, when you say there must be solutions, there must be solutions only for those who will be able to get out of the grid, well equipped, armed, and ready to create communities that are completely away from their concept of smart world, smart cities, and whatnot, which I already outlined in volume 7. So I think that is important to understand that we don't have that much time, and it's important also to understand our own limits, because as humans we can, of course, intellectually at the moment say, well, these are only machines, these are only the fruit of our own creation. But that's not really the case in a little while, when they will start to develop a mind of their own and a project of their own, as they did many times in the past when AI was experimented with. It's not a human-friendly creation, and views humans at times as a nonsense. So in my new book, I wanted to describe in these 7 steps how to become aware of all this, and also how to explain to the common folk even that this is not any time in history we have ever lived before. This is a completely different matter.
Yeah.
We are moving towards from Homo sapiens towards something that the elite wants to create artificially, and a monstruosity that, of course, goes against the creation of God.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
This is at least how I view it, but also how I think you view it, and all the people who potentially would like to continue living in a more traditional way. But when you have basically the United Nations and all these various organizations that, of course, are the modern Illuminati, like Davos and the World Economic Forum, just pushing this agenda, it's going to be very difficult for us. You see, me and you are people with ideals, and maybe we have also other people with ideals that will come along with us. But the majority of people are sheep. The majority of people, for convenience, will probably just say, okay, I don't want to have problems. I want to continue living, even if, I will be controlled 24/7 by the AI. I don't mind. It's for my own safety.
Yeah. If we look at that, and it makes a lot of sense, and we're looking more and more and understanding that AI, as you say, is cyber Satan, right? It's kind of like that whole.
And AI is cyber Satan, but it's also let's say that the AI is the initial stage which will merge with quantum computing, and that's what I explain also in this book. Assumes a completely different function, because and also prospect for the future for us. For the common folk, we will start living what is known as the digital divide. What does it mean? That me and you can't afford a computer that costs $1 million. And that is the common cost for a quantum computer that has a very complex way of cooling itself with helium and other substances. and it's not available to everybody. At the moment, either IBM or military bases here in the US are experimenting, but at the end, it's a computer that would be sold for millions of dollars to people like Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Obama, whoever has the money to purchase it. That means that at that point, there will be a digital divide. First of all your cryptocurrencies will be hackable by the quantum computer that is hacking just already now in the present experimentations, no problem in hacking blockchain. So blockchain is not blocked for the quantum computing. So these people will form a supreme council of cyber Satan that if they want, they will be able to get into our modest computers, all our passwords, through our blockchain systems, and we will not be able to stop them. So at this point, when that kind of digital divide will bring to a new form of feudalism, well, at that point, we need to go off the grid and renounce to all this, even what we're doing right now.
Yeah. Wow. When we're looking at these things occurring, is there a timeline? I mean, yes. It's happening now. So what are we looking at in terms of timelines?
The timeline is always the same. It's 2030 as the goal of cyber Satan to start implementing digital governance. What does it mean, digital governance? What does it mean, digital governance? For us, it means a digital gulag, because digital governance will mean from 2030 less and less representative of the people. Politicians will be deemed obsolete in front of the wonders of quantum computing and AI that will be able to order all the facets of our existence in a very mathematical way, following their algorithms. So it's not any longer about having hundreds of representatives talking about what goes on in your territory or this other territory of the world or this state or this. It will be like, why, people will view the whole thing as a waste of time because the AI will be working around it and will immediately give us the answer that we require. And with that excuse, basically, the AI will insinuate in our lives, in the end, destroying the remains of what we now call democracy. So within the next 10 years, we will see this transformation. And in 2033, we will no longer have people electing government, if not a very limited number, because it will be simply deemed as a waste of money.
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing because, as I said, more and more we're seeing that. But, in my opinion, there has to be a way that we counteract this, right?
But like I said earlier, it's only if you go off the grid, you create your own communities, you have your weapons, and then it's like, because of the nature of how things are working out here, in the next 7 years at least, it seems, at least here in the US, that big cities are going to be completely in the hands of the enemy, while instead there will be pockets of resistance within other parts of the United States outside of the grid. But outside of the grid means outside of the banking cartel business, so it's a big thing. We're not talking here about a small off-the-grid community that, every now and then it goes down to the normal town and buys some things or gets money out of their bank and says, okay, I'm living off the grid. No, it doesn't work that way. I'm afraid that's not the case.
It's going to change it's a lifestyle. I just want to, Leo, I just want to we're just going to take a little ad break here at the moment.
Sure.
And I'm sorry, my bad, when we got on, I forgot to mention the sponsor of tonight's show again, or today for you, who is Spooky2. They are the creators of frequency medicine, so to speak, and are the creators of home rife machines. So if you want to check more into their amazing products, please have a look at their website, and you can use my name as a coupon code to get your discount. So we're just going to play an ad. So Joe, we'll be back in a minute or two. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bob, and I'm going to talk about my experience with Spooky2 rife with my varicose veins. 25 years ago, I had surgery. I had 150 stitches, and it was months of recovery from that. plus the expense. Well, about 6 months ago, my legs were just as bad, or worse, and actually worse, than what they were before I had the surgery 25 years ago. And I didn't believe that it could possibly do that, especially this flashing light. I mean, that's a plasma generator, and phonotron, I believe. It was Spooky Central. And this frequency generator, XM, this last one, is doing the plasma. I got it labeled plasma. And I just can't get over. Now, my legs aren't perfect, but I avoided the surgery, and I was having a problem with phlebitis, where they get infections and they swell up, and I had some veins they were swollen, I couldn't even touch them without pain, and I dedicated a week of the plasma, and I put it right between my legs, and I'd set it on top of a box after a while. I'd set another box on there, raise it up some more, and run 2 hours a day for 7 days. And at the end of 7 days, I could not see a single vein. Now my legs, I can see some veins now, but the edema's gone. The fluid in my legs is gone. So yes, I have some veins that show, but my legs are healthier than they have been since I was in my 20s. I've had varicose veins my whole life, and it's a small miracle that that Spooky2 can take care of it with frequencies.
The world is bound together with love. Spooky2 will continue to spread love wherever we go.
Great. Wow. I must say, I was just sitting thinking, going through some of these things during that little break. It's actually quite amazing.
Problems here coming in and out probably with the connection, Chantelle.
Oh gosh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Perfect. Good. Okay. All right. Great, Leo. Wow. And I'm just actually looking at some of what people are saying here. You know, it's really just never give up. And I agree with it. What someone was saying here, supplanter, the more you tighten your grip, the more star systems will slip through your fingers. Princess Leia, I mean, yes, I fully agree with that. You know, the more we...
I like
the
the
guys, Okay. Can you hear me? Is it Leo? Where did you go? I think Leo's disappeared. Sorry, I thought that was me actually.
No, yes, we seem to have some weird problems, but as we are, of course, talking about the AI, I wonder if any interventions are happening on both sides. Anyway, somebody was asking, you know, so I'm going to have to give up with my suit. The important thing is not to give up my suit during these times of thermal, is to have a gun under the suit and to know how to use it. And as I was a military, I know how to use my guns, I know how to use my machine guns. So I guess that first of all, you need to be acquainted with the use of weapons, because it seems, I don't know, for a lot of people, a rough thing to say. But if you think that in the next few years you're not going to need a weapon, you're of course living in an illusion, and at that point you'll be living in slavery. Now, I don't know where you are living, because most people who are following us now, they're following us from all over the world, and there is different rules, unfortunately, regarding guns. But the sad thing about most countries is that the first thing they take away from people is the right to bear guns. And that is a very sad thing, because in the end it gives the opportunity for the state that rules you to completely control you. And for that reason, I'm a very big defender of the right to bear guns, and that's why I abandoned my Italian citizenship and Europe to move here to the United States. As you know, also because I was persecuted in Europe for what I was writing and saying. So here, at least at the moment, at least we still have the freedom of talking freely and writing whatever I wanted, because here we have two amendments, the first and the second amendment, which are really depending one from the other, and they're very important. So I'm very glad to be here rather than elsewhere. However, having said that, we are definitely living in times of great turmoil, and we also living in times of great change. When you are talking about Sophia is the first robot innovation ambassador of the UN developing program. I mean, it's also been nominated, like somebody said in the chat, like honorary citizen, I think, of Saudi Arabia or something. So we are talking about basically normalizing the robots in our eyes, just as they're normalizing the AI. Just a couple of days ago, the Vatican has launched the AI Magisterium, which basically is going to be the new AI that will take over all the business of the Catholic Church. Also in matters of faith, they will be working with the humans. So, I mean, this is like Cyber Satan taking over the Catholic Church. I mean, AI Magisterium. And so I don't know if people understand the seriousness. Also, when in my book I describe, for example, how the AI was used this year to serve the first sermon from the altar in Germany, and it was done with an AI which presented itself on a big screen to these people, the faithful, in this German church. With the face of a black man. Now, I don't have anything, of course, against a black man, but that was the way they wanted to portray the AI within a church. So here it's really getting, the whole thing is getting really sick and very fast. So regardless of your political or spiritual or religious beliefs, remember that in the end, it's up to you to decide how you want to live. It's not Leo ZAGAMI or Chantelle or anybody else who can decide how you're going to live. I'm here simply providing a service which is using my own experience within the Illuminati, within the New World Order, within Freemasonry, to try to awaken the people to the reality which is unfolding. And this is what I did since the very early days when I came on the internet in 2006. And I was immediately attacked. But at the end, you know, it was really weird, because when I started this whole mission, finally revealing these truths, because I was left in front of two options. Either they kill me, or either I reveal all this, and maybe they kill me still, but at least I reveal everything. Well, after I started this, I was immediately attacked by people within the so-called truth movement. And then at the same time, I was arrested for espionage, and I was incarcerated by the enemy. Which then at that point, maybe the people on the internet started to realize, well, maybe ZAGAMI is saying something, otherwise they will not have probably accused them of espionage. But like I said earlier, we are in front of a fight. And this fight, of course, has to be done also for our children, for our grandchildren. And I think that these books that I have been publishing, and in particular volume 9, will be relevant even for people of future generations, to see how a group of humans wanted to really resist this imminent catastrophe, which is losing our humanity, because transhumanism means losing our humanity, by the way, and it's a very dangerous thing. So please.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, they've even got hybrid cars now, right? When you're looking at cars, I mean, you're even getting cars like with battery and petrol, you know, so it's like everything. I mean, you're looking at human as like this whole transgenderism, half male, half female, you know, everything is becoming interchangeable, it seems. And that seems to be on so many levels, which absolutely needs us to be taking notice of these things. I see that, and I'm just scanning through the chapters here right now, but I see on chapter 2, you've mentioned something about secret societies that build the Ukrainian identity. Now, Ukraine has been a massive country that popped out of nowhere in recent years with this big war with Russia. So speak to us a little bit about that, because that's obviously has a lot to do with the current state of events, or part of this transitional transhumanism activities happening at this point.
Yeah, well, actually, I did discuss very much in detail the reality of the war in Ukraine, the lies, of course, on the war in Ukraine, and what is really happening, which, first of all, is the Ukrainian identity. Ukraine means borderland. So already the fact that Ukraine means borderland, it should kind of make you understand this was not really a country, it was a borderland. And it was a borderland that was always fought, especially in the last 2 centuries, between Poland, Russia mainly, that of course occupied most of these territories that we now call Ukraine, and Prussia, Germany. Now, secret societies were used to literally build the Ukrainian identity. And this secret society, because the Ukrainian identity didn't exist, it was simply part of Russia. And one of the people who was born in Russia that most influenced the occult world was Madame Blavatsky, who was born in Dnipro, Ukraine. And of course, Madame Blavatsky was, at least she will have thought of herself as, of course, a Russian, not an Ukrainian. But in any case, let's say that the new Ukrainian elite that is now in charge with Zelensky and company, all financed by George Soros, are basically following the tradition of what was known as the Malorussian Secret Brotherhood. And that was connected to Freemasonry, the Illuminati, and was trying to inspire already from the early 19th century the independence of Ukraine. And we had also this short-lived secret society known as the Brotherhood of Saint Cyril and Methodius, which was founded in 1845, which promoted national awareness amongst Ukrainians of Imperial Russia, but was still too loyal to the Russian Orthodox Christian principles to be left alive by the Illuminati. So eventually, in any case, it was suppressed in March 1847. And most of his members were punished by internal exile or imprisonment. Now, the Illuminati didn't want to support the Russian Orthodox Church. It's become very clear also after the start of the hostilities, how now they are literally persecuting any form of orthodoxy because it's connected to Russia. And so they have also replaced the Christmas date, which for the Orthodox is in a different, as you know, it's not the 25th of December. And the fact that they have immediately planted this thing is like really changing the identity of the people who live there. Now, because the Russian Orthodox Church is traditionally close to the Tsardom of Russia, and then became close, of course, in later years to Vladimir Putin. And Vladimir Putin kind of helped the reemergence of the Orthodox Church simply because wanted to avoid the fact that in the early 90s, when the Soviet Union basically fell, they started to promote foreign sects like Jehovah's Witnesses, like many other, the Mormons. Everybody was promoting itself in Russia. I remember one day I was in St. Petersburg, they knocked on my door, and it was at the Church of the Latter-day Saints, and I was like, surprised, no? But this is why the Russian Orthodox Church then became a vehicle also maintaining that religious control over the Russian people. However, there was in 1845 in the Austrian Empire, basically members of the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church, loyal to Rome, that tried to establish already back then an Ukrainian nation, but it didn't work out. The Supreme, it was known as the Supreme Ruthenian Council, was founded as a result of the so-called Spring of Nations, which was a series of revolutions planned by the Illuminati and the sympathizers throughout Europe to remove the old monarchical structures and create new independent states. So I explain in the last chapter, if you remember, of volume 7, how the Illuminati tried to destroy, first of all, the monarchies because linked to their you know, Adam Weishaupt's Illuminati had one fixation, which was to push more and more this idea of communism that they were developing, and at the same time destroy the monarchies which were linked with the, you know, the king or the Tsar, were always linked with the religion. They were patrons or you know, like with the Orthodox Church in Russia, or with various other Protestant faiths in Europe. So they had to be destroyed. This means that in a way, the Jesuits and the Catholic Church, even if they couldn't manage to get back these countries because they were no longer in what used to be the Roman sphere of influence, of the Catholic sphere of influence, as it was later known, they could still sabotage the other forms of Christianity and, of course, promote more and more what will become their laicity form of society. And for that reason, it was very important for me to explain in this book the connections between the various secret society. There was actually in 1893 in Ukraine another secret society called the Brotherhood of Tarasov, which was also connected with the remains of the Malorussian secret brotherhood. These are things that most people don't know about. But in my book, I also show how in the 90s there was the resurgence of what became the International Order of Saint Stanislaus, which basically is very important. People say, why are you talking about this? It's boring. No, idiots. The symbol of this order is the symbol of the Ukrainian ground forces. So wake up, open your eyes and get out of the illusion. So, you know, people need to understand the way things are being manipulated. When you remember they brought that flag to the Pope and he blessed that flag of the Ukrainian ground forces with that cross, and everybody was like, oh, what is this cross? Oh, it seems Templar, it seems this, it seems that. No, that is the cross of the International Order of Saint Stanislaus. Go and study what it means. Go and study its history. And then you understand also the link that the Ukrainians have with Poland, because of course Poland was pushing this whole thing. When at one point Russia took over large parts and was very influential also in Poland, they also tried to bring towards the Tsar this International Order of Saint Stanislaus. But of course, then now in the 90s, after the fall of the Soviet Union, it became a way to also create a sort of Masonic order, which was not openly Masonic, but was connected to maybe their old traditions and stuff, and it was a knighthood. So at the same time, though, like I explain in my book, in the 90s, Freemasonry was brought back to Ukraine and was brought back by none other, and I have the videos also to show about this, by none other than Giuliano Di Bernardo, the guy I also mentioned in chapter 1, step 1, with the transhumanist document, and I show his face next to Dr. Nicholas Laus. Giuliano Di Bernardo brought back Freemasonry on behalf of the United Grand Lodge of England in Estonia, Lithuania, Ukraine, Moldova. And in Ukraine, he also established, later on, after 2002, the Academy of the Illuminati and the Dignity Order. The Dignity Order is like their outer order, is a sort of knighthood. The inner order, which dominates it, is the Academy of the Illuminati, because the Illuminati like to always have an outer order with another name and then an inner order where more closer to the... And it became so influential in Ukraine that in 2014, they did the Revolution of Dignity, which was the coup against the Russians, which started the confrontation in Donbass. So this is like real stuff. It's not the speculation, the rubbish you read. Wow. When you talk, you know, people say, oh, the Illuminati this, the Illuminati that. This is history. You study it and you can't debunk it. In fact, there is nobody at the moment can debunk this book because it's built on very solid foundations.
Wow.
So that was
wow. I mean, I hear everything you're saying. My mind is spinning, and I'm very happy you're going to be coming back again. Just to tell the viewers you will be back, because there are definitely a lot of stuff around that I'd like to touch on with you as well as we go further. But right now I want to just look at just certain points on what what your book is about. And I would like just to we're going to be posting a link of your book in our
it's a nice
chat.
book. It's a nice book at a very good price with a lot of pages. It's almost 600 pages. And I'm very proud of this book. And I say good price. Why? Because people can see it from the price I sell these books for on Amazon. A lot of times Amazon is actually getting angry with me because they say that I put my books at too low price. But the thing is, because they kind of impose to have certain prices where you can't really go beyond a certain price. So I try to make it the minimal price possible so that everybody can access to an important book like this and everybody can read it. So it's not about being a used car salesman. It's rather trying to warn people that we don't have much time and that this book can actually give you knowledge that other people don't give you, and it gives it, like I said earlier, on solid foundations, not speculation, silly speculations. Like, for example, there has been a lot of disinformation regarding this whole Khazarian myth, the Khazars this, the Khazars that. And now, I base my book on solid foundations. So there is no idiotic anti-Semitic rants or other things. When it comes down to the Jews, I talk about the Sabbatean Frankists. And the Sabbatean Frankists, for example, have a lot to say with Ukraine, because they were developed between Poland and Ukraine. Jacob Frank worked within Poland and Ukraine. So it is an important element in this whole picture. But of course, they don't want you to know about the reality of an heresy, which within Judaism creates a lot of problems and a lot of, misunderstandings. If you're not Jewish, you can't understand certain things. So what did I do? I mean, I have just a small amount of Jewish blood, so I'm not a Jew tradition, you can say I'm not a traditional Jew. But at least, thanks to my Jewish friends, I was able to always bring reliable information and credible information that finally makes you understand that the Sabbatean Frankist heresy is no better than what the Jesuits are within Catholicism. I can't get angry with all Catholics. I simply define certain elements within the Catholic faith as heretical and dangerous. And the same thing I do with Judaism. And the same thing I could do even with Islam or with another religion.
Absolutely.
So I hope that is clear for those who want. And of course, people here have decided to eliminate the opiate, for example, are definitely a very good read from Rabbi Malvin. It was basically a good book. That he wrote 2 books that are very good. In fact, I have them actually here. I can actually show them to you a second. I want to pick them up because you see people, and it's important to understand the truth about certain things and to not speculate too much. So here, for example, Rabbi Marvin Anterman, Volume 2 and Volume 1. Then you have also my late friend Barry Kamish, who explained also Sabbatai-Zevi, Labor Zionism, and the Holocaust. And then you have, of course, this other book that was given to me by a good friend in the Chabad community, which is Kevin Allen Brooks, which explains the truth about the Jews in Khazaria, not the hypothesis, the fake BS that unfortunately is fed to the people to implement this growing anti-Semitism that then develops in an idiotic show like the one that Kanye West paraded. So I tend to stick to facts, not fiction. So I'm glad that people appreciate that, and I'm glad that people who follow my books at times even they question me and they maybe send me a question. That's great. If you want, ask me a question and I will reply to you. But of course, I will not stand to people who have their mind set by reading some idiotic pages on the internet. Here we're talking about studying, which is another thing. You have to study, study, and study.
And I think that's what I really appreciate about you, Leo, is that you absolutely your work is very, very well researched, and obviously being part of that, it comes across as very succinct and very intelligent. And I really think you speak a lot of sense in terms of the inner workings as well as what we really need to be looking for, And I want to just say this is, often I get criticized or questioned, if you will, because we deal with these topics and then I get accused of being a fearmongerer. And it's not a fearmongering. We cannot live in a world where it's just love and light. I fully agree. I'm a great believer in energy and how we work with our energy. Absolutely. Anyone who knows me knows that. But you cannot also, we've also chosen to be here at this time, all of us. We are here at very exciting times on this earth,
That's actually a very good introduction to the next topic I wanted to discuss with you, which is the new Atlantean golden age, this golden age idea, which has been also filtered within the New Age movement. This promise of a golden age. I think that you are talking about that basically, because I mean, it's like all over the place. Oh, don't worry, ascend. The golden age is here, and
I get it. I totally agree with that whole. And I'm always being accused of being New Age, guys. And I've got to tell you, if you think I'm New Age, you have no idea what I do. And I'll tell you that I might use words in a modern day language that are different to the way Jesus or whoever used them 2,000 years ago. So I will speak in a modern day language. But what I'm saying is, in terms of understanding this stuff, we cannot actually deny that we in a crisis time for the entire humanity right now. So we cannot deny what's going on. We cannot deny what's been going on behind the scenes while we've been sleeping.
Because I mean, thinking that this is a golden age and that we will ascend with no problem and everything is fine and dandy and we can just lay back on the couch and enjoy the spectacle, it's completely demented. There is no golden age at the moment. There is, unfortunately, a very difficult age that we will be approaching, and the golden age is only a fake promise from those same people we're trying to fight. They say with the AI we will offer you a golden age. Well, if you think that everything that comes out of your smartphone can be great, and well, just marry this reality and not bother any longer informing neither me, Chantelle, or anybody who is actually trying to instead make you aware of the reality of things, rather than lift the veil out of this illusion that the daily folk, the daily person thinks, it's all fine and dandy because now we have the technology to eradicate sicknesses, to do this, to do that. At what cost?
Exactly. Anyone who thinks a med bed or whatever it is the answer, no. No, that's what I want to say.
I mean, if we listen to Harari, who is of course the philosopher of the Davos posse of the World Economic Forum, he says, well, you will be monitored, your health 24 hours a day. I don't want to have my health monitored 24 hours a day. I don't care if, sincerely, if I'm going to die of cancer or a heart attack tomorrow morning, because I want to live a free life in the eyes of God. I want to respect and have faith in him. That, I mean, if he takes me out, okay, fine. That's it. He takes me out.
Absolutely.
But, you know, it's like the people that are completely obsessed after a certain age of going to the doctor and having all kinds of invasive exams. Guys, okay, fine. It could be positive, but it means also that you don't have any faith. Because if you have faith in God, the real faith in God, then that should also make you understand that a lot of those sicknesses are psychosomatic and are the fruit of your own negativity. And so,
yes.
No?
Leo, I love it. I love what you're saying. I'm so happy that we're talking about this, because it is so true. The minute you lose your faith and the minute you lose your connection to God, your creator, that's when you're in trouble. That's when AI takes hold of you. That's when you lose who you are, because now you believe there's something out there that can do something for you that you can't do for yourself. And that's crap.
It's like what we have seen during the pandemic. And without going too much in details, otherwise I say we're going to probably remove the whole video. But the thing is that, you know, when you see a pope that gives more importance to science than to God, I mean, that is just like, that's not a pope. That is an heretic. That is a Satanist. That is something that doesn't represent what, you know, other popes did. It was to march in the middle of Rome during the Black Plague, the pest, one of the most dangerous things that ever happened, and with a cross on his back to try to repent and to make the people repent and to embrace God and to see if that will be of help. That is religion, of course, in service of humanity. Religion that bows down to science, well, guys, then that is basically some kind of like Christian Science, so brings us to the insanity of Scientology or other things like that have nothing to do with the real religion.
I fully agree. And I still maintain that spiritual intelligence, in other words, spiritual connection, is always going to outweigh, or if you will, it's going to beat, if you will, AI. But we've got to get to that point where we realize that we are incredibly powerful when we are aligned with God and our creator. And that is really what we as humanity needs to understand through this time. So we've got to connect spiritually. We've got to tune in emotionally as well. You know, this is a time where we've got to reconnect. It's because we've been so disconnected. We've allowed these forces to take control of us on a very subtle level. We can never say, I didn't do it, I was sick that day. We all carry the consciousness on this planet. All of us have to take responsibility for our role that we've played in all collectively creating this. So in order to change that, we've got to collectively and individually take responsibility for our spirit, for our lives, for what we do and how we're going to move forward.
One thing, though, is that at one point we're going to see that a lot of people will be carried astray by the evil forces that dominate them, and that we will no longer be able to save them. Something that already we sensed a little bit during this whole pandemic, when certain people make a decision that we thought it was not so good, you know? And then those people maybe after a couple of years regret that decision, but they made that decision. And they made that decision, and that's it, guys. You by making that decision, you have demonstrated your weakness in front of God. And you know, if science is your only God, good luck with that. You gonna basically, you are on your way to merge with the machine. You are on your way to transhumanism there.
Wow, that's a scary thought, but unfortunately, that's the reality, right? That is the reality. And I think we all know that. Those of us who've obviously been aware and awake about this since this nonsense began. I want to just ask you, and I know we kind of and I want to say as well, there's so much more to talk about, and there's so many more questions, and I want to just say that
somebody in the chat is saying how late I am. Well, you are 65 minutes late, so we have been in it for 65 minutes, but we are still gonna march forward with more questioning from Chantelle and more answers from me.
Okay, yes. So I'm going to ask you one more question for tonight, and then that is actually right. And I want to just say that there's a lot more to answer, and I'd love for you guys as well, if there are questions you have for Leo, to put them in the chat or email me, whatever. We will have Leo back again. I really think his information is super, super important. But one question I have here, Leo, is that to ask you is, you are what you eat, right? The secrets of Kotuko and insect magic. Because now, right, part of this whole agenda is not only lab-grown meat, which by all accounts is actually created from cancerous cells. I think it's the HeLa cell originally, that they could find the cancerous cell could mutate itself. So they've used cells like that. They literally... from what I've seen anyway, they actually have to slaughter a pregnant cow and use the pieces of the heart or something from the baby. So it's just a gory, disgusting process. This whole lab-grown meat, insects, hey, I lived in Thailand for a while, and I want to tell you, those guys sell insects, and I'm sure those insects are bred, and I don't know why, but that's been going on in the East for a very long time. So insects...
Yeah, but it's been going on, sorry to interrupt you, but it's been going on for a very long time. But let's see all the mess they caused for a very long time with the spread of at time viruses that comes up from... when you're doing insect farming, you're doing something that is not natural. And farming is very dangerous. It's still not something that we are used to here in the West, but in the future... the possibility that insect farming will then influence and pollute other types of farming, well, it's very high. And suddenly, you have a bunch of locusts escaping from an insect farm, ending up with the destroying crops or destroying your cattle, polluting your cattle. I mean, we have to be very careful about this whole thing about insect farming. But when it comes to insect witchcraft and you are what you eat, let's not forget that already in 1608, like I talk about in my book, Francesco Maria Guazzo was discussing in his Compendium Maleficarum how insects are used basically in poisons. They're used also during the Sabbaths when the witches, used to convoke the devil, used to copulate at times with him. They used to basically evoke these insects that will be infesting the trees and fruits of all the surrounding areas with locusts, caterpillars, slugs, butterflies, cankerworms, and such pestilent vermin was produced during the Sabbath, which is the original form of black mass before it kind of became formulated into the black mass later on. There was this Sabbath where the witches used to participate around the evocation of Satan himself. So I wanted to describe in my book all the dangers of insects, because insects have never been associated with anything positive, but rather with poisons, with different kinds of witchcraft. In Japan, koduku; in China, gu; in ancient Egypt, of course, we have the scarab. We have also the various holy images surrounding some insects, but also we have insect witchcraft present in ancient Rome. We have them in certain talismans that were wear. So I don't think actually bringing that stuff on the table is positive in any way, shape, or form. And for that, I wanted to also bring back to the table a discussion about what the United Nations and their institutions, the WHO, of course, and the Food and Agriculture Organization, which is based in Rome. The WHO is based in Geneva, created in 1963 the Codex Alimentarius. Now, the Codex Alimentarius is a very serious thing, because you were just talking about lab-grown meat, and that is one of the things that they've been promoting in the last few years. Everything, when it comes down to our food, is decided by this organization.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So in Africa, they are extremely influential. And who is controlling these organizations? Well, we know who is controlling the WHO. It became pretty evident during the pandemic. I think of that. Mm-hmm. It became pretty evident that it's controlled by China. Food and Agriculture Organization is actually directly controlled by China. They managed to get the president of this organization nominated already 2 times, and he's a Chinese guy. The recent elections that happened only a few months ago were basically a fake. There was no other candidates. There was only this candidate, which was this Chinese dude, pushed by the Chinese government. So they control the Codex Alimentarius. How is this possible? I mean, that we are controlled by institutions that are controlled by an anti-democratic hell place like China is beyond my comprehension. But there is a lot of corruption, and we know, for example, that here in the United States, it sits at the level of maximum power. You know, when you have the Bidens all linked to China, it's corruption. South Africa, all bought out by China. It's just sad. It's sad that the people don't understand where we are heading to, because China is really the one that wants to develop the ultimate AI in 2030. They want to be the ones who control this whole thing. So yes, it's
well. Have you seen some of their adverts on the streets already? These 3D billboards of theirs in China. I mean, it's insane. They've got, it looks like dragons literally moving through buildings and stuff. It's insane what they're already doing with their AI there.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the future for China is, of course, a future dominated, like, you have also the credit score system. Let's not forget the credit score system. So you behave or you are out. You behave or you have no internet connections. You behave or you can't travel. You behave basically or you're out of the system and you will starve. It's the mentality.
You lose your freedoms. The whole thing is we've lost our freedom, right? We've really what we've really done is allowed our freedoms to be taken away from us, bit by bit.
Absolutely. And we started also noticing it with those drones flying around during the pandemic, used as controllers, or robots walking along in parks saying, "You better keep your social distancing. You better keep it." It's obvious that we're going towards a dystopian reality, a reality which is dominated by these forces. So I encourage people to come together to form an alternative reality, not focusing so much on saving the 90% of humanity that inevitably is going to follow like sheep their slaughterhouse. This is how it is, Chantelle. I mean, we can only waste so much time after this 90% of idiots that are going to be slaughtered.
I agree.
At one point, you're going to have to say sorry. But, I want to give my friends, my family, a different kind of reality, a different opportunity. And we need to construct this opportunity. And how we construct it? Well, we don't have much time. So then we need to construct a completely independent form of town, city, whatever, in which we are sovereign in our own reality. That's not easy. And it's not easy because already, the United Nations has managed to corrupt the system, and they want to be the prevailing force for the world, the future world government. And they don't want anybody to be off the grid. So it's gonna be difficult, but it's not impossible. It's not impossible.
I have a question to ask you though, because I think Over the past 3 years, what we've seen, definitely with the pandemic and all of the stuff coming up, I think a lot of people have caught on in many ways. And even though I hate to use the word woke up, I guess that would be probably about the most appropriate term to use.
No,
So
I like the way how they sabotage terms. They make like woke up. Woke is becoming instead the synonymous of everything that is oppressed.
Interesting.
Or like
Interesting.
smart is everything that is not really smart. So
exactly.
When you hear these terms, you just say, "Oh, they are basically pushing the opposite. When they're pushing smart, is not smart. When they're pushing woke, is not woke."
Yeah. Exactly. It's the opposite. But I think a lot of people have actually caught on to what's going on. And, I'm wondering that, from where you've been and where you are now, did the powers that be, the controllers, actually have the expectation that human beings generally would awaken to their shenanigans in the way that we have? Because every day more, and I'm loving it, I have to say, I'm seeing new platforms come up on YouTube every day, whether these are people exposing celebrities or just talking about stuff like this. It's definitely become more and more spoken about. So from where you're at, do you think that they've actually expected us, humanity, to have as much information about what's going on at this time, or did they just hope to keep it completely secret and just carry on anyway and hope that 99% of us took the jab and did our little thing?
This starts a long time ago. This plan and the way they expected us to react is something that I already discussed with the head of the Monte Carlo Lodge back in 2004, 5, 6. Already we were discussing this and what kind of countermeasures they were taking when I was still within their own, elitarian circles. They were saying, Leo, so how are we going to do it? Are we going to turn off the electricity here? Are we going to blackmail them by keeping them at ransom with no electricity or no services or this and that? And they already had this idea in mind already back then. And I mean, we were in the very early stages also of how things have developed now. So if they were thinking about that in that way already back then, you can imagine how they're thinking now. Their idea was, okay, they might get the information, but then we're going to silence them by blackmailing them in one way or another. So we have, this is a guy, the Monte Carlo Lodge of the P2, full of bankers, of this kind of people. And I was part of it until I started exposing them in the fall of 2006, after I got threatened in June 2006, because I didn't like what they were saying and I wanted to have some answers. And that brought me out of that whole. And then it brought me to become what I am now. But if they were discussing that back then, you can imagine. I remember these discussions. I remember even driving by car from Monte Carlo to Sanremo and just having these discussions. So how are we going to control them? How are we going to silence them? But this is them. So this is, I guess, the best answer I can give.
Condescending. It's so condescending. It's just like what you're saying, having the discussions. Oh, well, how are we going to silence them? Referring to us as them.
Yeah. Well, at the time, I was still, I was still within the elite. So I was, I was actually, I was still able to listen directly to their own views, and they were trusting me with their own, their own secrets. So it became obvious to me, though, that their plan was to simply restrict the access to certain things, and as they control the whole system, it's possible they can still do that to us now. I mean, you are suffering every now and then a electrical, you don't have electricity for a lot, in South Africa. It comes and it goes, but you depend from it. If the system tells you, well, Chantelle, if you don't comply with us, we're gonna just take you off the whole thing.
I'll tell you, I'll tell you what it's done for a lot of South Africans is it's already taken a lot of South Africans off the grid. I'll tell you that much. Obviously, the one thing about human beings is that we're very resourceful. And that's one thing I know from us living over here. Just as South Africa, I mean, if we just look at in the apartheid era and the amount of sanctions that were imposed upon this country, and I'm not saying it was wrong, but somehow we always found a way not to need what the outsiders were offering us here in South Africa. We've been an incredibly resourceful place. So what I'm saying is, even now, we've been having these power cuts for decades, right? Especially bad since lockdown. Lockdown ended. That's when they really started hammering us with load shedding. And really, at the end of the day, what it does for a lot of South Africans, we're building with solar power now. A lot of people are getting off the grid. So when you're speaking to new people who are building homes or looking for stuff, it's really with the intention of getting off the grid. So already there's a lot of us who have done that and are doing that. So that and being, as a country that is very rich, we have lots of rich land, lots of rich earth. The world has been lied to as well about our continent. It is not the most overpopulated.
At the moment, you have a big problem here, because when you have a political leader inciting with the song "Kill the Boer" at a political rally, kill the white man, I mean, I would be a little bit worried if I was you. I mean, you are living in a country that has lost any equilibrium, let's say, and it's very...
It has. It's definitely, when we look at that, that is what's going on. But by the same token, I think, and it's hard to explain. As a South African, we've grown up with that. We understand it's like there's that culture. And yes, there's a lot of violence around us right now. And does it make it okay? No. But as we've gone along as well, we found our resources. And yet, for as much as what you see, I want to say this to you, as much as what you see Julius Malema and his EFF guys doing that crap, there are 10 times more black and white and colored people finding our way together. We really are. Nelson Mandela called us the Rainbow Nation. And I know that I really have no illusions about who that man has been now. But we truly are the Rainbow Nation in many ways, because somehow we find our way through. Somehow the people of this country will not allow themselves to be vaccinated. 69% of South Africans refuse the vaccination. I mean, that's one of the highest percentages, right? So I believe as well, we can counteract these things by coming together, by joining hands, by standing up, forming our communities. We know that their strategy is divide and conquer. They've been doing it since forever. Look what's happened the last 3 years, one thing after the other. If it wasn't COVID, then it was the war. Then it
also, let's be honest, the African continent is caught in between a struggle which is much wider, and it's a struggle between America, China, and Russia, and it has really implications that might be really bad for all the countries of Africa, regardless of where they are now. And I think that what is happening in Niger and what is happening in all that area is symptomatic of what might happen soon on a large scale all over the African continent.
Exactly.
Because the Russian, the Sino-Russian New World Order is something, a reality, which I already discussed about in Volume 7, which is, of course, manifesting more and more. And in the end, you're going to see a struggle for the resources, which, like you said earlier, just a moment ago, in Africa are plentiful. But those resources become then, a problem, unfortunately, when you have the...
it's already, you look at Bill Gates, he's bought up just about all the farmland in America, right? And that's obviously what's happening here as well. It's happening with the Ruperts. Anton Rupert, Anton was the father, Johan Rupert, who's really the true CEO of South Africa, because South Africa is no longer a republic. It's a CC from 1983, I think. Johann Rupert runs this country. He's brought up, in fact, I was just saying, to my area where I went to school, which is very sacred area. When you're looking at that land, it's where the most ancient Bushmen and Khoi people were. That's where the most ancient Bushman paintings you're going to find. So it's very sacred area. He's bought up the land, so much land in that entire area. You know, it makes me wonder. In fact, one of my school friends sold their farm to the Rupert Foundation. And then when you try to go this weekend and just say hi, you know, like go to the farm, which is usually what happens, he was denied. And immediately someone said they were riding kids around. What that means, I don't know. But what I'm saying is there's a lot of that kind of stuff happening here. The farms are being sold. So we do need to be aware and not sell our farm to the highest or our property to the highest bidder.
This goes along with what I said earlier regarding the digital divide and the new form of feudalism. The kind of, you know, they are building themselves almost like new castles, overseeing their basically almost enslaved population, because they will be completely controlled by by all the modern forms of technology that don't permit any form of privacy or escaping the grid if you don't really go off their land. So it's going to be very difficult. And when we realize all this, we're going to have to also maybe buy a small piece of chunk of land and act in a different way. What do you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was actually listening to something last night where they were saying that with a lot of these extraterrestrial races, or whatever you call them, what they really try and do is gather enough what they call real estate, but it's like outer space real estate, if there's something like that. I don't even know how to explain these things anymore.
Well, in volume 9, as you know, and of course today we are reaching the end of this appointment, so we might have to discuss it in the future. But also in this book, one of the main topics is the origins of this AI cyber Satan, which is not human and it's alien in nature. So at that point, it means that we are really feeding into a Trojan horse that is going to soon conquer us and feed us into a reality which is not human. It's demonic. And being enslaved, you know, so regardless of the Rupert South African business luminaries of this world, these people are serving, all of them, an interest which is beyond this world. And that interest is the interest that Christians call, of course, the end times scenario with the fallen angels, Satan, and everybody enslaved by the mark of the beast. It's manifesting. So we need to not take the mark of the beast. We need to avoid their own agenda. And it can be only made possible at one point with the resistance, but that resistance will only be verbal and intellectual to a certain extent, because at one point they will have to be also practical, because in front of a system that basically owns you, you're going to have to find a way to disown you, to get away from it, because they own because they have the banks. I mean, when you're talking about you talk about these people, you're talking about people who have basically the control over the whole banking cartel, the Sabatian Frankists, and you're talking about people who are in some way also creating a network of all the various organized religion institutions, also what you believe in, and everything is coming together to then go under the same control.
The judicial system.
The judicial system, of course, and of course also the educational system of our children, of youngsters who end up, facing ChatGPT nowadays, which is a monstrosity, which seems to put forward only a lip-tarded version of reality, which is what has been always pushed since 1968 in every single university on this planet. Sadly, unfortunately. So I hope that we can continue in the future this discussion where we have left it, and we can also expose a little bit further this other problem, which is, of course, also regarding the inconsistencies of this golden age, which I rather see as a digital gulag.
I look forward to hearing about that, because I really think, more than anything, I think people are just so confused. I mean, for people that have never heard of this stuff before, it's new to them. The idea of child trafficking occurring is just too much. Let me understand that that's just one tiny layer of something so big and so gross that is really going on. So I think it's really, it's about awakening. And I appreciate that, Leo, and the way you do it. Just the, your books and everything. And I know Morné has put the link for your book in Volume 9, Confessions of an Illuminati. So, guys, Leo's books are available.
Don't end up with all these bugs on your menu. This is the back cover. Okay.
That one, yeah. Excuse me. So, yeah, I look forward to having you back. Definitely, there's a lot more to discuss. I'd like to go through more points with you, just regarding what, your book, the future, how you see it, how we can prepare ourselves and just be a little bit.
For those people who, of course, want to purchase the book, if they have problems in getting the physical copy, they can always get the Kindle copy. I know that in some parts of the world, it might not be so easy to have Amazon deliver the paperback copy, but in that case, you can always get the Kindle.
Kindle, yeah, it is available on Kindle too.
Though I always stress the paper copy is more important, because at one point this quantum cyber Satan is going to get in all our business, and it's going to probably erase all our digital libraries. So get a hard copy. It's better.
Exactly. I love the hard copies. There's nothing actually that beats paper, right? Reading a book. I'm old school and I love reading. I must say, I read on Kindle when I'm forced to, but I don't enjoy it. I always like reading a book. A bookcase with my books in. Lovely. Anyway, Leo, thank you so much for joining me again this evening. It's always such a pleasure to chat to you.
And then we will continue soon. And we will continue soon, as we discussed before starting this episode. Aquarius Rising Africa will be able to bring you more of Leo ZAGAMI in the coming weeks and months, maybe with a more regular also spot for me next to you in the coming months, but also in the coming weeks, possibly finishing a discussion on this book, which I regard as very important.
Absolutely. We will definitely do that. We'll keep this, watch the space, guys. We're going to do definitely follow up from this interview today anyway, on Leo's book, Confessions of an Illuminati, Volume 9. And definitely, I'm very happy he's agreed to be a regular guest on Aquarius Rising Africa as well. So awesome to be having you in the future again, Leo. So before we bid you farewell, is there anything you'd like to say and just end, before we end off to our guests?
Well, I mean, when we talked about the Codex Alimentarius, of course, once again, we mentioned the United Nations. I think that the concept might have seemed a nice concept, to unite all the nations. But when we actually dig deep in the roots of these United Nations, we immediately see there is a lot of evil, especially with their very early connections to the Theosophical Society milieu, the Lucis Trust, and the idea that in any, they want to form of mankind, this global government under a fake spiritual banner that eventually will be guided by the Antichrist. And the Antichrist is another topic that we will be touching in the next show, which I also touch in this book. And one of the things that the Theosophical Society said about the Antichrist, which I would like to end up with, is that it should resemble Apollo. Apollo, the god of the locust, for those who don't know it. So, you know, it's like the Antichrist is the god of the locust. You end up eating the insects. We are what we eat, so we are all insects at that point, and that's how the elite views us. Well, let them eat insects because they are just insignificant insects for us. You know, that is the kind of easy bugs concept of Klaus Schwab. So we will continue instead eating some great food. At least in my home, we don't eat insects. We eat some fine Italian cuisine. And I don't know what you are eating in your own home, but reject the
Italian cuisine as well, very often.
Okay. And thank you for having me on. God bless you all, guys. Take care.
Thank you so much, guys. Take good care, and we will see you next week very soon. Like, share, subscribe. Please share this information. This is such important stuff to get out there for the masses. I know it's not stuff that people always want to listen to because they don't want to hear the truth, because it means we've got to actually do something. But for those of us who are listening and got our ears and eyes open, God bless you all. Thank you so much for watching, for sharing, and for supporting our channel. Again, to all our Patreons, thank you so much. You guys are most certainly the nuts and the bolts of this channel. And there again, Leo Zagami's book, Confessions of an Illuminati, Volume 9, now available. Morné has put the link in the comment section, and we will put
it's 7 steps, you know, so it's an easy way to actually gradually arrive to the realization of what we need to do. And I'm sure that people will appreciate, and they're already doing with the reviews they're leaving on Amazon, the fact that I made it very understandable, more than usual, so the ordinary folk can really go through it and benefit from it without, you know, losing himself too much in all these names and things, you know. So thank you for giving me this opportunity, Chantelle.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you. Okay, guys, happy weekend. Don't eat any bugs. Be nice. Okay? No bugs, no fake meat. Just grow your own stuff. Just grow your own stuff, okay? Yeah. Gosh. Okay. Bye, everyone.
Au revoir.